Jonathan Smith and his staff have brought momentum to the Spartans on the recruiting trail over the past several days. And today, Saturday, June 14th, they earned a commitment from someone who I think is a very high ceiling at cornerback, 6'1", 185, was watching some film of his before I decided to make this video, and he's a very physical, handsy corner, and also is a wide receiver. He plays wide receiver too in high school. Someone who is not afraid of contact, and someone who I think does a very good job of especially reading opposing offenses. His name is TJ Unmanyora, and he is a corner out of Roswell, Georgia, from Blessed Trinity Catholic High School, entering his senior year, and he committed to Michigan State today, giving them their 13th commit of the 2026 recruiting class. It feels like they're going to get to 14 or 15 commits or more soon, just based on how they're recruiting. 2 days ago, they got a commitment from Colin Campbell, 89 overall player per 24/7 Sports, is a 4-star, top 400 level player, top 40 overall offensive tackle, 6'7", 280 pounds from Gilbert, Arizona. Will definitely rise in the rankings, I think, as he finishes out his senior season. And then Cade Kaufman, quarterback from Michigan, he's actually ranked as a nearly top 250 player, top 20 quarterback overall in the nation per 24/7 Sports composite. Just an 88 overall right now, ranking per 24/7 Sports by themselves. And what's so funny about this, and Kaufman committed several months ago, but Colin Campbell, their highest overall per 24/7 Sports, committed 2 days ago. Braylon Hodge, their best overall defensive player per 24/7 Sports, committed June 1st. And then Corey House, an edge, committed 4 days ago. KJ DeRiso, another cornerback, committed just about a week ago. Quinn Bucky, another offensive tackle, 6'6", 270, committed a day ago, yesterday. Michigan State's been earning a ton of commits in the month of June. They've been heating up during visit season, as it's known. June and July, you have official visits, you have camps, you have summer workouts, and that's when recruiting especially gets hot and exciting before the season kicks off. And I think that Michigan State, for a while there, had kind of a lull, and it seemed like they had no momentum at all, and recruiting was pretty dead. And I know that Michigan State fans, whether in my own circles, such as my Discord server, if you want to join that, and I highly advise you do, the link is in the description, or just on the internet, it was very obvious that they were not pleased with recruiting. And I imagine Smith and the staff weren't pleased with recruiting either. I think that whether that had to do with maybe NIL and things that happened beyond Smith's control or with his staff, things just weren't going so well. And now they are. I was planning on making a Michigan State recruiting video talking about why their recruiting needs to get better. And I was telling my graphic designer that when I finally got around to making it, which was going to be today, well, Michigan State just gained so many commits, they almost doubled their class size and are teetering right now on being a top 30 recruiting class per 24/7 Sports composite. Before we talk more about this class and we go into some further detail about Michigan State and some people who 24/7 Sports in particular think they could earn commits from, and also talk about why Michigan State needs to continue this recruiting momentum, because if Jonathan Smith wants Michigan State to be a top 25, top 20 team annually, which Michigan State is that as a program, top 20, top 25 football programs, they should be that, expect to be a top 25 team almost every year. Before we get all into that, please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell, like the video. I'd appreciate all those things very much. You see the little thumbs up there. Comment your thoughts down below on this current recruiting class. Who do you think Michigan State will add in the next coming weeks, months? Who do you think their highest overall commit will be by the end of the year? What do you think reasonable expectations are for Michigan State recruiting, and also for Michigan State in terms of yearly wins and yearly losses? Do you think that Michigan State should accept that with the new loaded and more loaded than ever Big Ten, that to a certain degree they're limited? To a certain degree, maybe a losing season here and there isn't so bad if they have some high upside? or maybe 500 or 7-5 is a, reasonable season at times. Although, of course, you want to do better. Or do you think that Michigan State needs to set their expectations to what they had in parts of the D'Antonio era, where they were winning double-digit games and beating some of the better teams and punching above their weight class for really every year for a bit there in that middle stretch in the peak of the D'Antonio era? Let me know down below. Hit the notification bell, like the video. Those two things especially help us get into the algorithm and help us make more content, free content for you. And it doesn't sign you up for anything. And if you want to do anything else and go the extra mile to support the channel, there are links in the description. I don't want to bore you any further. Michigan State, do you know how talented their roster was entering 2024 per the recruiting services? So this is per 24/7 Sports composite, taking all the past recruiting classes and all the players who are currently on every single FBS school's roster, and even FCS and different college football rosters at different levels, as long as they have players who are ranked in recruiting services. And they assign those players different values, of course, depending on position, depending on the size of the roster, because some have more scholarship players than others, of course. Taking all of that into account, where do you think Michigan State was entering 2024? I know that we all know that they weren't top 5. They certainly weren't top 10. Certainly not top 15. Those are to be expected. I don't think Michigan State's ever had a top 15 talent roster in the history of the 21st century modern recruiting rankings, outside of maybe in the early 2000s with some of those Saban classes and Bobby Williams classes, but that's outside of my comfort zone. I won't go any further. Top 20, no. Now, top 25, I think they were there at times under D'Antonio, or at least flirting with it, but no. They weren't top 30. They weren't top 35. They weren't even top 40. They were 41st. 41st. And the only reason they weren't lower, in large part, is because of the transfer portal, which allows you to take some 4 stars or even 5 stars who didn't pan out at other schools and have them transfer to you, and maybe they can be rehabilitated under your regime. Michigan State last season had 19 4 stars on their roster per 24/7 Sports team talent composite, and 57 3 stars. Average player ranking coming out of high school on all Michigan State's roster, all of Michigan State's roster, was an 86.96. That is not going to give you a tremendous amount of success unless you punch well above your weight class in coaching, which I will tell you, I actually think Jonathan Smith and Joe Rossi and Brian Lindgren and Jim Michalzik and, there are just so many coaches to think of, like Chad Wilt or Blue, their secondary coach. There's a lot to like about the staff, in my mind. And I forget the name of their tight ends coach, but he's ridiculously good too. And Keith Banapa, their running backs coach. Michigan State staff is, I think, tremendous. I think it's one of the more underrated staffs in the country. Now, a lot of people actually think that I don't know what I'm talking about the minute I say that, because I've expressed that opinion before and many disagree with it. But look at their track record at Oregon State and how they got a select few, yes, few, but still good amount of players given the talent roster they had drafted. Look at the games they won at Oregon State, the teams they competed with, competing with Washington in 2023, competing with USC in 2022, beating Oregon in 2022, winning 10 games in 2022, and being power rated top 25 for much of the year in 2023 at a place like Oregon State in Corvallis. Smith was doing such a good job at Corvallis that they invested a bunch of money into their football program, renovating the stadium, updating facilities, and they were ready to be committed to build something. And then the Pac-12 imploded. No one wanted Oregon State or Washington State, and that just kind of, fell apart. It's actually a pretty sad story if you think about it. That's one of the programs that has been forever changed in a negative way due to conference realignments, Oregon State. If the Pac-12 got their act together, I think Oregon State would be a much better program and would have the potential to be a top 25 program moving forward in college football. But we're talking about Michigan State here. And for Michigan State, it's really simple. They have the 31st ranked recruiting class right now. Their average player rank is an 87. Those are improvements compared to last year's team talent composite, their talent roster. And what Michigan State should shoot for is to get a few more 4-stars, but I would say mostly to retain their roster, to get some diamonds in the rough that they like, some higher level 3-stars, and win, to keep building relationships, to coach up their talent. Really, with where Michigan State's at, they have a new athletic director, which is exciting, but then again, he's new. Michigan is not too far away removed from winning the Big Ten for 3 years in a row and winning it all. Ohio State just won it all. Notre Dame's having a ton of success. I mean, every program that's surrounding Michigan State at the Power 4 level has had the same amount of success, or more often than not, tremendously more success than they have in recent memory. I mean, even Indiana, they just went 11-2, and Indiana in 2024, in my mind, probably beats MSU of 2021 by a fairly large chunk, given, matchups and also just how they played their games. Michigan State escaped a lot of their games. Indiana dominated in a lot of their games. So when you look at that and the 2021 season being so many years away, we're now coming up on, it's going to be close to 4 years away. It's definitely 3 years away, but after the season will be 4 years away. We're coming up on that. And Mel Tucker's no longer there, and no one except for Courtney Hawkins, the wide receivers coach, no one except for him is there. Or was there. So no one, got my tongue twisted for a minute. No one on that staff from that really successful and awesome season is still on staff. All this staff knows is we're rebuilding right now. So I think the biggest sell that Michigan can have, or Michigan State, I almost did it again. It's a hot day, like really hot. I imagine it's in the upper 70s where I'm recording right now. But at least unlike many of the ESPN pundits and other people, when I said Michigan, I corrected myself to Michigan State. Hate it when people do that. And I almost did it myself. Michigan State winning is going to be the biggest sell. Same with upgrading NIL, which I think was lacking, and getting some players that are listed as top priority and that Michigan State seemingly has good relationships with that are higher level players. 24/7 Sports, for example, lists Michigan State as warm for Salisi Moa, an athlete from Utah who's a top 50 overall player, Carter Gooden, who is a top 100 overall player from Massachusetts, Samson Gash from Michigan, a wide receiver, Xavier Warren, a wide receiver from Texas, and then Logan Nagel, Chris Addison. These are very close to 4-star caliber players, if not already 4-star caliber players, depending on whether you look at 24/7 Sports rankings on their own or factoring them into a composite. And all those players are listed as warm, according to 24/7 Sports, which means that Michigan State's involved. They've built a relationship with these players. They've offered them. They want them. There's a decent chance they'll get them. If Michigan State can land some of those players, and especially all of them, I think this is a very successful recruiting class. Tucker at times was able to entertain higher level recruits, but at the end of the day, a lot of those entertainments simply fell through. That's what they were. They were entertainments. They were headline grabbers. Didn't go many places. Another year, they actually brought in a decent amount of 4-stars and blue chip talent. That was the year I think they were in on David Stone, or maybe the year before that. Regardless, though, ultimately that class was pretty small. It only had about 20 commits. I think this was either the 2022, it was the 2022 class, I think, maybe the 2023 class. I forget. But one of those classes in recent memory was pretty small, and you don't want that. In the age of the portal, you do want bigger classes, and you see this. Ohio State, for example, traditionally got smaller classes under day. They cared a lot more about quality than quantity, and that's good. You should care more about quality than quantity, but only to a certain point. Last year, this 2025 cycle, because they lost so many players and the portal exists, and it took some of their players, they signed a larger class than usual. I think they got like 26 commits or something over the usual 25 that used to be the standard limit with few exceptions. Michigan State probably needs, given the fact you want to upgrade your talent roster and don't want to be so portal reliant, I would say around 25 commits or even more if they think they can get some high quality players and maybe some underrated players would be rather good. Regardless, I think that Michigan State recruiting is ultimately on the rise. As I said in a video yesterday that was recorded on my live show, you should hit the notification bell so you can get notified when I go live Sundays, Mondays, and Wednesdays at 6 when I talk about a lot of these things. I said on my Wednesday live show that Michigan State is a program that you shouldn't underestimate, that you should buy into. There are reasons to buy into Michigan State, and I think that an athletic director who knows how to fundraise, who knows how to sell his school's donors on big things, and who knows how to support his head coach and hire quality coaches, that tied with a wonderful alumni base who has wealth and who has passion and who has expectations, combined with a rich history, combined with the Big Ten standing. They're not in the ACC. They're not in the Big 12, so they have the highest possible access to conference resources. And I think tie on that, you look at Michigan State's geographical standing and their connections with the staff. I mean, the staff has relationships on the West Coast. This staff is building relationships in the Midwest. And I imagine this staff, if they're as great as I think they are, they're going to try and build relationships in the southern schools and southern states as well. So there are just so many reasons to, I think, buy into Michigan State. And I think looking at this class and the momentum they have in June, what they'll likely carry through in July, and because they're rebuilding, even with all the frustration towards them and the Rutgers loss, the Illinois loss, the near choke job to Purdue, which I was at that game actually Friday night, so it made it easier for me to attend a game in person. That left a bad taste in a lot of fans' mouths. But I think that if they win some games this year, if they show promise, and if they recruit better, if they just improve compared to year one, I think the fan base will buy in. And I think that's what's going to happen. So take some of your chips, take some of your money, whether metaphorical or not, and invest into Michigan State football. Because I think that this recruiting class is only going to get better. I think that in the season they're going to go bowling, perhaps do better than that. And ultimately, I think that Jonathan Smith, his coordinators and his assistants, and I almost forgot about their strength and conditioning coach, Mike McDonald, who I also think is one of the best. This is an underrated staff, and a staff that is one of the better staffs in the Big Ten. I will say, I think it's a much better staff than what Michigan has right now. I think that if Michigan State staff had Michigan's resources and roster, we'd be talking about Michigan as a serious Big Ten contender. And more people would take them seriously as a national title contender, although I don't think they have that type of roster caliber this year. But it would still be talked about in a more realistic tone rather than having to reach with what Michigan currently has, because I think Michigan State staff is better. Maybe I'm wrong there. We'll see. I think Michigan also upgraded their staff. But in summary, buy into Michigan State. It's just that simple. And this recruiting class and the momentum it has is just a microcosm of why you should do that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys very soon. I am so excited for college football to be here. We're only 11 Saturdays away.